I heard you on the wireless back in 52, lying awake intently tuning in on you. If I was young, it didn't stop you coming through. They took the credit for your second symphony, rewritten by machine with new technology. And now I understand the problems you could see. I met your children. What did you tell them? Pictures came and broke your heart. And now we meet in an abandoned studio. We hear the playback and it seems so long ago. And you remember the jingles used to go. You were the first one, too bad the last one. In my mind and in my car, we can't rewind, we've gone too far. We can't rewind, we've gone too far. Pictures came and broke your heart. Put the blame on VCR.
I block it. Never.
Draw attention more. I've relaxed it even more. Thanks very much.
Kudos!
Hey, Martin.
Pirates, welcome to a night that you will never forget. You might remember it in the morning, but don't worry, it's all being videoed here. Guess 1, 2, 3.
I just got another review. Good evening, broadcasters. Past, present, and future. And actually, even though you might have been a broadcaster in the past, doesn't mean you might not be again in the future. Things are going in radio. There's a lot of experienced people here tonight, a lot of talented people here tonight. And it's actually incredible that we're all in the one room. We all have memories of what we did, what we were going to do and didn't get to do, so maybe you will still get a chance to do it, who knows. Dr. Underdoes is here. He was the zaniest character I ever met on radio. Microphone. What would use my microphone?
Doesn't he, Mike?
He never did.
I want you to try and guess which radio station was responsible for my mic malfunctioning. ABC, Shoreside, or WLRFM. Lads, it's a great privilege to be here tonight with Rick Whelan. Normally Rick only shares the stage with one other person, Jack Daniels.
Change it to Jemison, actually. Jemison these days.
He's buying Irish, he's supporting Irish at the moment. But no, I'd just like to say, lads, that Frankie King has bought a drink. There's a miracle now, lads. Fill that. You'll never see that again, I tell you that much. God only knows what's in there. Ginger ale, Rick, check it out. That's not whiskey, I can guarantee you that much. But when Brian Kennedy was telling me there was a book coming out, I said, you'll never get these guys in the one room together. And I'm amazed that, you know, a row hasn't broken out yet. Because I was out at the front door, Rick, with Matt Keane. Where's Matt there? He's dressed like a bookie. And I said to Matt, are you laying bets on who's going to start the first row here tonight? But he said no, he was going around with the hat later on, in case Brian doesn't sell enough for the books there. But Rick, let's talk about you, because you were the man who began radio in Waterford City. And I'd like that to be accorded tonight, because Rick Whelan, give him his due. That's the earliest memory I have of Rick out in his dad's cowshed, milking airwaves when he should have been milking cows, getting antenna up with Ginny O'Jani and putting WLR-FM, well it was Waterford local radio at the time. I've just been informed by Timmy Ryan over there, and Timmy is my memory man here tonight, filling in for Jimmy McGee. Anything I forget, Timmy will tell me. So Rick, could you just tell us about those early days when you decided to set up a radio station in your dad's farmland?
What gave you the idea? What was it all about?
Actually, I suppose if the truth be known, it was about looking better in the dance hall or the disco, so you might actually be able to get off with a girl who was obviously no.
No.
Kinda, actually.
Didn't work, Rick.
Yeah, I know. I should have gone into TV or something.
Just asking, Rick, can you recognise any of your children in the audience tonight?
One or two, yeah. As we got into it, Gidio and myself, it started in '77 actually. It took a year to start WLR. I don't know if you know the history of it, it's been told many times over. And in those days there was no internet, there was no way to find out how to build a transmitter. As a matter of fact, to build a nuclear bomb might have been easier. Because there probably was information around about how to build a nuclear bomb. But I remember ringing Marconi and they wouldn't talk to us because we weren't a legal broadcaster, so we were caught every way. And we ended up with a bit of a transmitter on a trawler, and we put that together. That didn't work, that blew up, and we blew up subsequently many other transmitters. They just didn't work. I don't think Jim is here tonight, it's a pity he isn't, because he could talk more technically about it if you really want to hear about transmitters. Today, everything has changed utterly, and a terrible beauty is born with the fact that you can go to any supplier and buy a transmitter if you have a license, or maybe even if you don't. I can see room for pirates to come back, because everything has been so tightly formatted in radio that it's become predictable, it's become boring, it's become tedious to listen to.
I think Ray is right, lads, because back when we were in the pirate days, Rick, you could say what you wanted. You could play what you wanted.
You could say what you wanted.
And in Rick's case, I could say what I wanted, but Rick would lay who he wanted, so that was the thing. I mean, back then, Rick, you probably remembered yourself, being a DJ and being on the radio was the closest you'll ever come to being a superstar in your own town, because back then in the 80s, when radio came in, you were on the radio and then people would see you the next day, and you just got a really fantastic reaction from people, especially if you went to Dungarvan now. I was down at the Roadcaster in Dungarvan, and the minute you come into the square, oh Jesus, Conor Hypen is here, by Conor, I love you on the radio, Jesus, you're fantastic. Here, meet the wife, Conor, go on, give her a good kiss, Conor, she loves you on the radio. Go on, Eileen, go up to Conor there. And you'd be like Bono coming out, just waving at all the people there, giving them a chance to fill their clothes and everything, and anything else you could. But they were great days, really. And my earliest time on radio would have been with Matt Keane and Pat Haberlin when we were on the sports show. And we had fantastic prizes there. I remember it was once down in the apple market, and there was this Pakistani fella selling these ties. Actually, he was giving them away. Nobody would buy them. I'm wearing one of them here tonight. And I said to Pat, Matt, Jesus, Pat, Nat, we have to have a quiz. I got a box full of these ties here. Wait till the people of Waterford see them. The lad said, geez, nobody will want them, Connie. You must be crazy. Oh no, I tell you, everybody will wear them. Look at the colour of them. There's like egg stains on them and everything, and Rubik's cubes and the Da Vinci Code, everything. Anything you want was on them. So anyway, put out this thing there. We had a sports quiz, like who won the most Epsom derbies or whatever it was. All these people came in to wear these ties, and they said, oh, for fuck's sake, geez, I'm not wearing that. It's a joke. I wouldn't hang myself with this. But they were the innocent days, and Rick, I think the beauty of radio back then, as you were saying, you could be who you want to be. An awful lot of people came up with their own monikers as well. Can you remember any of the people who changed their names on radio? Rick Whelan. You used to be Paddy Whelan. You became Rick Whelan. And God forbid you ever said his name was Patrick. No, but you became a legend, Rick, yourself. So WLR then started to employ people to come onto the radio. How did you go about finding people, and who was behind the whole thing?
I can actually tell you how I met Pat Haberlin. Now, I knew Pat Haberlin for years before when we used to do discos and that sort of thing together. And he came up to me in the High V one and he said, hey Rick, I heard the radio station is going really well. And I said, okay, thanks. And continued to drink my drink. And he said, any chance I could have a look around? Maybe the next day or two. I said, come on tomorrow. He said, what time will I come out? It's about 2:45. He said, well, you know, what do we do? I said, well, you just go on air and see how you go. And he said, like, on air? I said, yeah, 3 o'clock, 3 to 6. And Pat did that and stayed with us then for 20-something years and continued on air. See, it's like, if you push somebody in the deep end and they can even tread water, they don't have to swim. They can do it. But the trouble is today, it's too much screening. You know, you've got to give your CV for everything. I think if somebody wants to do something, you should listen to them. We don't do it enough here in Ireland. We don't do it enough here in Waterford. There are very talented people out here. There's so many talented people here tonight who came to radio and contributed huge amounts. That's why WLR grew to what it is today. And it is absolutely huge. The lads in Sureside, the lads in ABC, there was great competition back there. Huge. Absolutely massive. They were in earnest. Everybody worked for a pittance. Actually, I can tell you straight out, I got nothing for 10 years in pirate radio. I earned money in discos. And what I earned in discos, I brought back and put it into WLR. So it was a new mast, or it was a new couple of valves for the transmitter, a crystal, which it was expensive to get cut for the 252 meters we operated on at the time. All of these things were very, very important. But we let them go, and I think if Waterford is ever to get back on its feet, we have to start looking much more deeply than we do at the moment. How did WLR become a success? It's probably an accident, really. People were good. There was no internet, as I say. There were no mobile telephones. If you wanted to make a phone call, if you wanted to make a phone call at Carrick, you had to book it. You had to actually make a phone call to Waterford. And people used to set up that woman actually who used to book all those calls, and they'd give all kinds of scandal on the phone because they knew she was listening in. And she would get all the wrong information and give it out to people. But these kind of things happened. And we had to book an international call. You had to book a call to Australia or to America. Today, you can pick up your mobile, text your son or your daughter in Australia, your cousin, your aunt, anybody, and they're back to you within seconds. That's the difference. WLR was necessary at the time, but it happened in WLR. It could have been Sureside, and it could have been ABC, and the lads did a fantastic job. We all competed, and the competition was amazing.
Let's talk about ABC and Sureside there, Rick. I mean, when ABC came into Waterford City, they had a very romantic setting in a caravan overlooking a cliff in Tremor. So they were either going to succeed or swim their way back to England in a caravan. But they had they had fantastic people, I have to say, and they seemed to be ready-made DJs. Every one of them was tremendously well-spoken, and they had a huge knowledge of the English language, and they had, which we had to correct them on many times, and they had these catchy jingles that seemed to be from Radio Caroline and places like that, and you know, we have a few of them here tonight, and I did say to Brian, I says, Brian, would we recognise each other? He says, don't worry, I have the name tags just in case. But people like Clive Derrick and Steve Silby, who had, I thought, a hilarious name when I heard it, Dickie Danes or Dick Staines or something like that. I said, is this guy for real? I'm Dr. Underdose, but I can't compete with this fellow. Who is he? Where did all these stains come from anyways? And we have Kerry Gray, a fantastic newsreader. Andy Green, a bit of a genius. He was kind of ABC's Gidio Gianni, or Gidio was our Andy Green, whichever way you want to look at it.
He's close, but no cigar.
Well, I think he didn't blow up as many areas as Gidio did, but anyway. Our creators much smoke, you're going to look at. No, we're not here tonight, lads. As I said, seeing certain people in the room here tonight still kind of getting on, I say there's peace, there's hope for the Middle East peace process, that's all I can say. But I would like to say that ABC, like Rick said there, I think they raised the bar when they came into the equation. And I think the people that they had there were very personable. And I didn't feel any divisions with them really. Because a great friend of mine, whom I'm thinking of here tonight, Jaime, he had been in South East London, as he used to go on about. So he brought a lot of sophistication in. And when the English invasion came in, I think they were welcomed. Maybe not by WLR, but I think if WLR considered what happened was, the bar was raised, WLR had to work a bit harder, Rick, the jingles had to improve. You didn't have to because you were a genius anyway. And then we had Shoreside, and I think Shoreside had a huge following. It's like Man City and Man United, you know, two big teams. So everybody gained, and a few Dublin DJs came down. And the first thing they said to me, they can't believe the standard of radio presentation in Waterford City. With 3 fantastic radio stations, I think we were the envy of the country. Because even Radio Nova and Sunshine in Dublin, I thought they came down and they said, how can you sustain 3 radio stations and all that talent, all that jingles? And we covered so many different things, so many aspects. You know, like there was sport, you know, Dermot Graham, a fantastic guy. You know, every bit as good as Gay Byrne or anybody like that, and he liked to court a bit of controversy, and he certainly got people speaking in Waterford, and he generated his own stories, people like that. And then, as I said, with Shoreside, I wasn't really on there with Eddie Cody, went in for a few interviews with Eddie. This is John Ferguson, Buddy Stewart was not with us tonight. JJ, everybody, he was like there, and Tony Weldon. So we were really blessed with the standard. And I think you should all give yourselves a round of applause, lads, because you all created that fantastic legacy that Waterford has.
Yeah, we're doing it!
Jimmy Ryan, the greatest breakfast DJ. More women have woken up with Jimmy Ryan than they did with Gordon Beatty, let me tell you. And they still do. He's still there, 30 years on, he's still in position. And I definitely think he's going to get the 50 out of it there. So we're going to be inviting up a few people. I'd just like to say a few words about Jaime Griffin, though, because I always look at us, we were the sons of radio in Waterford City. But I always thought Jaime, he was the godfather. And he had a word, a kind word, always the kind word. He had a kind word for everybody. And he was a mentor. If it was Rick Whelan, Alan Feasy, Liam Walsh, Conor Halpin, Dickie Danes, Clive Derrick, whoever it was, Timmy Ryan, he always had a word for everybody. Colin Kennedy. Do you know what I mean? He kind of encouraged you. And he liked your program. He gave you ideas for your program. And we did a funny thing with Jaime. We used to do a thing called sending Jaime off around the world. Once he went off in 1982 to Spain as Humphrey Ball. He was the soccer correspondent. I mean, Jaime didn't know a whole lot about sport, but he did know about racing. I don't know how many free bets I had with him, tax-free over the years. I'd like to thank him for that. Because when the government were charging 15% on a bet, Jaime would do it for nothing. But we'd send them off, and people would say, Jesus, Jaime, you're back. You were out in Spain, you're back. Oh yeah, lads, I came back on Concorde. He always had a quick remark. And we sent him out to the Philippines. There was this guy, Cardinal Jaime Sin. He's what a gift that was, what a name like that. So, Jesus, Jaime, you have to go to the Philippines. And you have to report on the civil war against Marcos. And Jaime was meant to be in a square overlooking where all the fighting was going on. And I came across these discs up in WLRFM with gunfire on them, bombs, bullets, shooting, the whole lot. So I said, Jaime, I want you to report on this war. So Jaime said, Jaime, you're in the Philippines. That's right, I'm coming to your life in the Philippines. I'm just overlooking the main square now. I'm going to have a look out my window. I put on the CD of the sound effects. Jaime went, oh Jesus, I'm shot! Oh Jesus! Jaime, are you okay? That's all the listener heard. Jesus, I said to the out there, Jaime has been shot. He's been shot in the Philippines. And that's all I said. And I said, I can't go on. The program has to end. And a guy was walking down John Street the next day. Jesus Christ, Jaime, I thought you were dead. No, lads, he says. I just got grazed. How come you're back so soon, Jaime? Concord, lads. Jaime was the most frequent flyer on Concord than anybody else ever existed. But he was that sort of a character that he just raised the spirits of any gathering he was in. And I think everybody, I didn't even know he had a surname. You know the way people like Elvis and Rick are known by just their first names? Jaime was the same. And he always had funny sayings like, for instance, he'd always go into a hotel. He'd give a tenner to the waitress, give that to the chef. He had a terrible fear that the chef would poison his food. And when you consider all these programs on the TV, he said the chef has the most power in any restaurant or hotel you go into. So he did things like that. But he always said, always the kind word. And words like, be lucky. So I'd like to remember him with fondness here tonight. And I'm sure you'll join me in raising a glass to Jaime tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
I'll tell you about what happened. Connor, when he was on air, he had the undivided listenership of management of WLR, because we never knew where he was going, what he was going to do. He was absolutely lethal, and we knew at any moment he could get us into a legal situation we couldn't get out of, unless we went to court and spent a long time there. We never wanted to do that. We were trying to keep the noses clean. We were looking for a license. Connor rang John Thompson, said, I have a bit of difficulty here. You know, she's been dead. He began to sob a bit. And, it was actually, I think, John's wife who was talking to you on air, and she was very, very understanding. Said, okay, so it's your grandmother? He said, yes. And she said, okay, has a death certificate been issued? And he said, no, but I know she's dead. And he said, okay, well, where is the deceased at the moment? And he said, well, she's upstairs. I said, well, how long has she been there? He said, well, about 8 days. I said, she's beginning to stink a little bit at the moment, so I know she's dead. And this went on probably for another 5 minutes with various exchanges, but it was real radio, and we were scared shitless on the night, I have to tell you. I don't know how you got away with that, because you were actually back on air the following week.
Well, how I got away with it is I booked my future funeral with John Thompson. It's the only way I could get out of it. He says, I want your body when I need it. But we did things. Another time, Tony Breen at the Jury's Hotel, and I rang him up one night and says, listen, I didn't get through to him, I got through to a porter, and I says, I think my wife is having an affair. She's up in room 201. Would you go and listen to the door and hear any sounds? And this porter says, there's no one staying in the hotel. This was the June bank holiday weekend. And Tony Breen went ballistic. He rang up Des or Rick and said, for fuck's sake, he says, everybody now knows there's nobody in my hotel on a June bank holiday weekend. I fucking need to help me up on the radio station. Another time I got into trouble with Jeff's. We said there was a dope bust in Jeff's last night. 12 dopes were arrested. Jeff didn't like the thought that anybody could be smoking a weed on his place. Especially if he wasn't getting a go. And the third one then was Noel O'Brien used to have a takeaway up in Barnstrand Street called Stripes. And I just wondered on air one night, I said, Jesus, I wonder why is it called Stripes? Is that because of all the zebra burgers he serves in there? And finally, my uncle Tony told me about this. He says, Jesus, Conor, that was an awful thing you said last night. What was that? He said, this is a request for Joe Murphy or whatever. I know he's listening because I have his ears here in a jar. And one night I played a request for everybody in Ballygunner. You don't bring me flowers anymore. So that's what Rick had to put up with. But then the problem soon became Clive Derricks when I moved to ABC. And he had to get rid of me as well.
It's time to bring up Clive Derrick.
Yeah, come on, Clive, let's tell you what.
Walking away, he's walking.
It has to be said that we recognised the talent in Conor. Of course, we knew of his exploits and we knew how dangerous he was. But he had an interest in sport, and we recognised that the station, we wanted to kind of develop our sport output. And we said to Conor, can you do sport, but can you make it of interest to people who know nothing about sport and have no interest in sport? So, do you remember the time you did the sports news in the middle of Broad's Michael Street? Dressed as a woman. Live on air with a radio mic connected to our outside broadcast, which was in, does anyone remember Burger Garden? That was brilliant, wasn't it? So Conor did sport for us, but actually made it entertaining and original and brilliant. And I don't think anyone to this day has really ever done that. Every other radio station does sport. So, you know, on a Saturday now, if you turn on any station, they're giving you all the sports results, great. But if you're not really into sport, you're bored to death and you're going elsewhere. I want to kind of, all I really want to do now, I don't want to talk for ages, just want to say thanks to Brian, because I think he's done a brilliant job, and he's brought the media to the And there's a couple of gaps, and I want to kind of mention just a couple of people who are kind of, I think, carrying on in the tradition of what we all did back in those days in the late 70s and the 80s. Tremor Community Radio, there's a couple of people here, Garrett Weiss, their manager, and Donald Flynn, their technical guy. Can we have a round of applause for that? And I think some people who are really kind of pioneering things, and maybe I shouldn't say the name because they're illegal, are Open Tempo. I don't know if we have anyone there. Anyone from Open Tempo here? No, I listen in occasionally. I like some of the stuff I hear on there. I think it's great to hear, you know, someone giving us a bit of competition again these days. Also, and I think ABC Power 104, there's a couple of guys from the station. They were going on the nonsense. So that's it, Conor.
All right,
Thanks very much. And for anyone, actually, I'm going to say one thing, because it's easy to get the impression for anyone younger here who kind of thinks, my God, these guys were just lunatics, and they were libeling everyone on the radio, and it was very amateurish. And it really wasn't. Most of the time we were, apart from when Conor was on, we were really responsible, good citizens. We had fun, but it was all legal. It wasn't really as outrageous as well, it was when you were on.
So, we also have Shoreside representatives here tonight, folks, and let's not forget the fantastic contribution that Shoreside made to the radio listenership in Waterford and the county. Let's not forget that. We had a big listenership, and Jaime used to say to me, you don't know, and everybody on air, you don't know how many people are listening. Because in the 80s, I think radio was king. I think it was much bigger then than it is now. I mean, if you listen to a lot of radio stations now, the DJ is saying, text me in your funny holiday moments, your disastrous wedding experiences. It's all text radio. Text me in my program. I don't know what to say. But back then you could say what you wanted. I think we have Stephen Dean here. Who are all the Shoreside lads? If you put your hands up there, we might get a word from Roddy Clear, ladies and gentlemen. He's now at KCLR. The Clear Road home. So Roddy is going to take us down the Shoreside way. Well done, Roddy. Thanks, Conor.
Yeah, God. I was actually just thinking there, listen to Connor and listen to the lads. Jesus, lads, we've come an awful long way. We've come an awful long way. I'm sure every one of you here will remember your very first time on the air. And I opened a book with Shay there as to when was the first time during my time up here I've mentioned 2 words. Do you know what those 2 words are? Don't say a word, Shay. Right, you're close. A lot of people that I here would know me from the ABC days in particular, when had the Irish program. It was through Phil Lizzie that I got my love of Irish bands. But Shoreside Radio was the first time for me, and with that in mind, I want you to, those of you that remember Shoreside well, give a little round of applause to Esther Kennedy, because it was her parents' farm that we used to broadcast from. I got a little bit of surprise when Esther arrived up. I recognised her immediately. It was Tom Milan, well, it was either Tom Milan or Jackie O'Keefe, neither of whom were here tonight. They were the early instigators of Shoreside Radio. But my abiding memory, one abiding memory I have of Shoreside was the aerial outside the studio, and I use the word studio extremely loosely. It was more a chicken coop than anything else, and it was quite literally you could have chickens floating around the place while you were broadcasting. But I remember there was a problem with the aerial, and those of you that know Jackie, which is also me pretty much, he's a big man. I think he's bigger than myself. He's a really broad man, and he had to climb up to the top of the mast in order to fix whatever the problem was. And the grappling shoes he has weren't grappling shoes. They were something that were fashioned out of steel and iron or whatever, and strapped onto his legs with nylon rope. And while he was at the very top of this, the pole kinked. And Tommy O'Keefe, another name, who's not here unfortunately this evening, Tommy was at the bottom. He was bursting his backside laughing at Jackie. And all I can remember was Jackie saying, "Would you stop fucking laughing, I'm going to die here." We're just looking at him. It was just, as they always say, you had to be there. And I apologise to anybody here who didn't go through these days. I know a lot of you here were listeners. I see Ray and Angela below were friends from way back then. And God, there were days, and I used to work in the glass factory from whatever it was. What was it? 8 o'clock used to start? 8 o'clock to 4. And Tom Milan gave me my first program on Shoreside Radio, which was the Cantwell's album chart on a Sunday afternoon. Around about, I think it was 6 to 8 o'clock, and some weeks you get a full program, another week you might get Jackie will come in and say, "Listen, Ryan, we've got a disco to do downtown, sorry, you're off air." I might get as far as number 23 in the chart or something. That was the end, and I just say what was number 1 before we signed off. We mentioned Eddie Corby. I think Eddie is just one of those people. He was more at the ABC end of things, but Shoreside for me, way back in 1979 I started there, and then I got a call in 1983 from, I think it was Andy Linton, who actually sent a text in earlier on wishing everybody well. He can't be here this evening. He says, "Would you be interested in jumping ship and moving over to ABC?" And I thought this was good, because to me ABC were just, the music was the first thing that caught me, and I was intrigued by what they used to play. And yeah, I said, "I'd love to." So by the way, I said, "We'll pay you." "Oh yeah, grand, £15 a week and 2 albums from Sinners. Take your pick." Of course, I used to go to Sinners and take double albums. They never knew that until years later. There was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, Noel Brown is here, and we can't let tonight go without getting a group photograph of all the presenters and anybody who's involved in any way with the station itself. So I don't know when that's going to hurt, Brian. Right, when do you want to do that now?
After me.
After you. Right. That's all for me. Radio has been great to me. As I said, I worked in the glass factory and couldn't wait to go on air in the evening time on ABC, and great, wonderful memories. But I think what I take away from tonight in particular is the wonderful friendships we made down through the years. And be they WLR, ABC, Shoreside, whatever, we were all part of something extremely unique, and we didn't realise it back then, but by Christ, we were stars and we loved it. Thanks, guys.
The news is you can listen to Roddy still any evening on KCLR FM. It's on the Clear Road Home. And clear off, Roddy, clear off, good idea. But he's up in Kilkenny, lads, but you can get him in Waterford. That's the great thing about Roddy. And he still organises the Vibe for Philo. He's still keeping probably the greatest rock star that ever came out of Ireland. I think you probably all agree, the great Phil Lynott. We have some people from, I wonder would Richie Steve Silby say a few words for us there. Ladies and gentlemen, a fantastic guy. I mean, the great thing about all of us here, we were all so good in so many areas. But I think two of the greatest presenters I've had the privilege to hear, and I put them on an equal status, Timmy Ryan and Steve Silby. The slick presentation was unparalleled, so I'd like to salute the two of them. But everybody else was so good in there, just in that area. They were two personal favourites. Okay, Steve, it's all yours.
Thanks very much, Conor. A terribly hard act to follow, but I've got a script, so we should be all right. First of all, I want to explain why the moniker. Why did some of the DJs on these stations have strange names? My name, despite Conor laughing about the stains and everything else, boringly enough, it came from the marriage of two people that I used to work with when I worked in a bank prior to radio. But it served me well because prior to coming to Ireland, my only experience of radio had been with pirate radio in London. Now this was nothing like pirate radio in Ireland. We used to break into blocks of flats and broadcast from the roofs of blocks of flats, or we'd put a transmitter between two trees in a Sunday in a park on a Sunday afternoon. So I used the name to evade detection. It kept me away from the long arm of the law. It was also very useful when I was on Radio Caroline. The police boat would come out and circle around the ship, and we'd wear a scarf and a balaclava, and all the DJs would wave at the police. I'm sure there's a file on me in some government department in Britain, but fortunately the name served me quite well. But Richard Staines has floated off into the distance. You can see that being a DJ was perhaps not as glamorous as you might imagine back in the old days. And it's back to the old days now that I want to take you to a world before Daysha AM, the Oliver Carroll lunchtime show, Not Till 6, to airwaves that crackle with the names of people like Mitch Doyle, Owen Ronayne, Frankie King, Jerry Gannon, Tony Weldon, and Eddie Cody, and there were many, many more. And I'm here to talk about an incident that happened on Shoreshead Radio, not ABC, which I spent some very happy years with. But I want to take you back to a night in 1980. It's actually a night that has resonance with this very day, actually, for reasons which will become obvious in just a moment. But I want to take you back to the night of November 22nd, 1980. I'd arrived in Ireland in the summertime of 1980, and in November of 1980 there was a very big event on the horizon for practically anybody alive that was watching television. There was a TV show on the air at that time called Dallas, and on this particular night in the United States, they were to learn who shot JR. Now, thanks to a promotion that we ran all day long on Shoreside Radio, the listeners of Waterford would learn before anybody else who shot JR. The only thing was, they had to stay awake until 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was my job to tell them. But this was an age before the internet, email, any other form of mass communication, as Rick correctly identified, because I have, my mother is still alive and living in North Carolina, as is my brother. Back in those days, I used to have to go to a phone box and book a call. And sometimes you'd have to go back 2 hours later to when the call was actually ready to be made. Who shot JR? The whole of America would know, but no one in Europe would know until the program was transmitted some weeks or even months later. But I had a plan, and this particular plan involved me listening to the BBC. And back in those days, the BBC was audible. You could hear it thanks to a crackly BBC Radio 2, which was on 909 kilohertz, the same frequency as some sports fans today tune to Radio 5. And you have to picture the situation. I was sitting in 7 The Mall, which, as I remember, was owned by Brendan Boyer. And I sat there in this Hessian line studio, which was full of foam, full of smoke, and I sat there between 2 turntables, domestic cassette machines to my left, and a crackly cassette radio behind me, recording BBC Radio 2. And around about 3 in the morning, they would announce who shot JR. And so around about 3 o'clock, I put on the longest track I could find and turned up the radio, listened very carefully to who shot JR, because my audience
who I'd been talking to for the previous couple of hours and telling them how they would learn exclusively on Sureside and nowhere else Who Shot JR. They were waiting. And at the very moment that BBC Radio 2 announced Who Shot JR, the radio and the reception went into the deepest fade that Radio Luxembourg would have been proud of. It was unintelligible. But I recorded this, and I spent the next few minutes winding back a cassette and winding back a cassette, trying to pull from the noise the word of Who Shot JR. And there was no use. It was unintelligible. And I've had these people listening, and they truly were listening. I followed Eddie Cody, and he had a massive audience. And I was trying to listen to Who Shot JR, and I couldn't understand from this static who it was. So a hastily hatched plan B found me reaching for the Sureside telephone. Now the Sureside telephone was a domestic telephone with a rotary dial, and it had a lock on it. Mick Daly, the guy that owned the station, had put a lock on it, so it was impossible to make phone calls. So what we used to do was, those of you who were old enough to remember this, there was a cradle and two little black buttons, and you used to tap the buttons like this. Now, although I could ring my mother easily in America and ask her, it was impossible to do this so many times successfully and get exactly the right number in North Carolina. So, I rang the operators in Exchange Street, and by tapping 1, and then 10 more taps, and then 10 more taps, 100, voila, and I had my dear and late friend Bernadette Roach on the line. And I'd met Bernadette a couple of months previous, and we'd spoken a lot on the telephone, and she was a big fan of Sureside. The reason being is that I was, I think, the second and possibly the third English-born DJ in the town. When I arrived at Sureside, there was a guy called Nick Hull. He wasn't there very long. I certainly didn't know him. And there was an English DJ on WLR on a Saturday night. I never met him, never knew who he was. Does anybody remember him? No, he was on Saturday night on WLR. But the points I want to make here, this was a very austere time, and there was a lot of creativity, and there were 3 wonderful radio stations at the time. And as Connor said, the radio in Waterford was really very, very good. And out of it came a radio station, WLR, which I congratulate on being the PPI Station of the Year. Well done, guys. Their heritage and lineage to get to this point is very interesting. Someone should write a book about it. So well done, Brian. But I'd also like to salute the people in this room who I no longer hear on the radio, and they're very good broadcasters too. And I'd also like to say, and include everybody, the guys from Waterford Local Radio, 252, 88.8 FM, Sureside 227 and 98 FM, and the guys from ABC 1026 and Stereo 101. Because whilst WLR FM is indeed the station of the year, these were stations of a lifetime. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Nicola. That little prompt. The Heathrow story was in the early days of WR when we were broadcasting on 252 meters medium wave. I'm going to get technical for a moment because at that time, at night time, we didn't get a very good signal out because Radio Sweden were also on 252 meters, and there was what's called a heterodyne signal. So if you turned on your radio, you got Radio Sweden and you got WLR, and you got this sound that went. It was impossible to listen to. So we decided we better do something. So we went on 199 meters medium wave, which was a clear frequency. And we were broadcasting away on this for about a week. And we used a new aerial design. It wasn't what's called inverted dipole. It was like a Christmas tree design. It was like a very, very tall mast with insulators coming out, which were lengths of plastic tubing, and they held the wire around what was spiral like that. It was really working well, and we were delighted with it, but we knew we had losses in the power from the transmitter. We wondered where it was going, but we didn't know. One day, Stan Furlong, who operated just 2 blocks down, was an electrical repair shop, and Gideon, my partner in crime, worked there. We got a phone call one day to say, from Shannon Airport, to say that there was a bit of interference in the Heathrow Airport from a local radio station in Waterford. Did you know anything about it? Could you tell us anything about it? We got this. I rang them straight away. I rang the guy in Shannon, and he put me in touch with the guy in Heathrow, and I got straight through to the air traffic control tower, and I talked to a guy called Nigel, who was extremely nice about it, and said, well, you know, you the guy in local radio, are you Waterford? I said, well, yes, I am. I said, I understand that we're working in some problems. He said, oh yes, you are. You know, you've got a harmonic on your aerial, and it's actually interfering with traffic landing at the moment. We had a flight coming in from JFK this morning, and they, because they were having some trouble with the landing gear, they had to shift to a distress landing frequency, which was frequency 7. And when they did, they got the Bee Gees singing Tragedy. Absolutely true. It almost caused an international incident. Within an hour of having found out what we found out, we changed back to 252. We thought, hang it, we'll suffer it. At Radio Sweden came in at night, obviously operating on millions of watts an hour, probably about 1,000 watts at the time, kilowatt, as they say these days. But anyway, we got out of it. But they raided us the next day on the idea that we were still operating on 199, and the transmitter was actually 252 and went to court, and so that was thrown out of court. Fortunately, we didn't have to pay the fine because they got it wrong, but we acted to. I just want to say, probably I'm telling you this because, well, one, because Nicola prompted me to tell you, but the other side of it was that we were always trying to do the right thing. And where do I go from here? So much in radio, so many people here tonight, so many people to speak. Somebody just asked me over there if I would do a character called Tom Clossy that I used to do on air.
Yes!
But the thing about it, that if you really want me to say it, I will. He was a man from the Common Mountains, still alive, lives with his mammy. And he went on radio on Timmy Ryan's breakfast show for years and years and years. And the thing is that he operated in his own field, and he had his own thoughts about everything. He didn't like Charlie High much, and didn't like Anton too much, and then there were things he loved. And he was also trying to start the smallest, well actually the biggest little airport in Europe, in the Cumberland Mountains. And no one had ever started the airport in the Cumberland Mountains, but the whole idea was to get on with it. But I'll tell you anyway, while I'm here, that there was the convent up in Knockanaffel was very famous. There was only 9 nuns in it, and 8 of them went away on a retreat one day, and one of them stayed there, Sister Benignis, and she was a great nun. Everybody loved her, and she was powerful. And she had the convent to herself. So she said, I think I'll have a bath. And she went to the bath, and she had a bath, and she was immersed in water and suds and bubbles. And the thing about it is, as everyone knows, when you're immersed in water, or you're in the shower, the friggin' phone rings. Oh, it's on the bed. And that happened. The bell rang in the convent, and she lay in the water for about 5 minutes. The bell kept going. She said, oh, I better go and see what she is. So she went down to the main door anyway, and she thought she was dripping water everywhere, but I won't open it. And she was there, bollock naked basically, with the veil on. And she said, hello, who's there? Hello, who's there? Blind man! I said, oh, well, if he's blind, I suppose I could open the door, because he's not going to see anything and compromise my modesty. She opened the door like that, and the fellow standing there and says, Lord, sister, haven't a great body for your age, where do you want the blind home?
Because the weather and the travel and all the roadworks, all for WLR and Timmy's programme. Great Matt Keane is with us, ladies and gentlemen. It's worth listening to. Paul Power is with us from Kildare FM, folks. Give a round of applause. All the way. He came down on a pipe all morning to the colour there. Lord Morris said him in there tonight, give that jump. We're going to work from Matt Keane in a minute. And let's not forget it. Steve Sylvie. We have Shay, did we come for Steve there? Fantastic speech. We have Shay Susan as well.
Shay,
actually, it's Tip FM, ladies and gentlemen. He's a huge loss to work with as well. As is Roddy Clear there. We have Damien as well with us there, folks. Extra side. The most laid-back man in the room. Wake him up there. It's Timmy Ryan, everyone. beautiful lady from Dunboris there. She sank a few trawlers in her day. Eleanor Power is with us, folks. Give her a round of applause. They're like the king of the voiceovers with the queen of the voiceovers, Nicola Beresford. 69, any night you like. We're going to have a word now from the one and only Mr. Matt Keane, followed by author and organiser tonight, Brian Kennedy. And I'd also like to...
Paul Power is down there. I can tell you stories about Paul. Lovely to see you, Paul. But I came here for one reason. I don't deal with war. I don't go to these kind of things. But I heard that a friend of mine was coming here tonight. And I asked Brian, I said, are you certain he's coming? He said, yeah, he's coming. Because he's the heart and soul of me in radio. And he's here tonight. I want you all to stand up, put your hands together for the brilliant Pat Harperton. He's down there. Pat. Pat and myself started the sports show on a Friday night. We ran between 7 and 8. And we used to be stuck for a guest. And every Friday night we asked one person to come on, and that was Pat Blaa. And Pat Blaa was always there. He was always available to talk. And we always claimed that we gave Pat Blaa his break into broadcasting. And I think Pat Blaa really appreciates that. Back on Friday, 23rd of June 1978, I married a girl called Leslie Murphy from Dominic's Place.
I played at your wedding.
You played at the wedding, you did. And funny enough, that was the day WR actually started. And Rick and Des were at the wedding. Well, Rick came up to me, he said, Matt, we're in trouble. I said, what's wrong? Transmitter is fucked. It's not been blown up. So the lads had to leave. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to stay with Leslie or go with the lads. I decided to stay with Leslie 35 years later. We're still together, but that's neither here. And I'm still with WR, so it's not too bad. Pat Harperton, I want you to come up here and tell us a fantastic... Is Andy McCluskey still here? Pat Hughes had to go out at 8 o'clock. But everything went tits up. Didn't Pat tell the people what happened that particular night?
Well, basically, Des locked Andy into the recording booth, so we had nobody to go on air at 8 o'clock. We had no news, so Matt had to get the cassette of the news in Georgia Street, which is 2 floors down, I think, wasn't it, at the time? So. Yeah.
What they had was they had PVC windows and they opened out of it, so it was quite difficult. She was on the window, so it was really difficult to get the cassette down. And of course, you do something to catch it properly, get it back up, get it into the sheet, and get it out on air. And through some kind of a miracle, we hit the news on time. I don't know. But yeah, there was more stories than that, but we best leave those. I think some of them might be in the book actually as well.
So those are the stories that happened at the end, and the cassette was flying up and down through the windows, Pat, wasn't it? But Pat, how did you actually get to know Pat Blaa? You got his number in the phone book or something, wasn't it?
I don't know why you were interviewing me, but great stories, great radio. I wish it could happen all over again.
And I'm going to tell you a private story now because people just want to have a few jars and crack on with the night. But
Rose up Frankie King with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Big round for Frankie over there. Paul Dow is with us, folks. He's been on more radio stations than any of us. Stephen D. He's doing very well on The Breakfast Show. He's Timmy Ryan on Southeast Radio. We're going to be hearing from Timmy shortly as well. He's down there, he's waiting. He's the main act, as you will probably realise. We're just the warm-ups to Timmy. But Brian Kennedy is coming now, folks. Give Brian a big round of applause. He's made a fantastic job of getting us all together and writing about it as well.
Thank you. First and foremost, the important thing. One sausage is all I got from the fucking program every opening. One sausage is all I got. Listen, this means an awful lot. People coming down here tonight. There's people who have been in the same room maybe 30 years tonight, so it's lovely. I thank you every single one of you for coming down. It means an awful lot. When I done just following the Fridays last year,
I wanted to take a break. Cassandra, she puts up with us so much, and I said, I want to take a break for a year. But I went up to Colin Kennedy's house, and Colin said, I should write a book about DJs, you know. I was coming on about it. But when I saw his enthusiasm and his drive for the book, I said, look, we've got to do this. And I'm not standing here tonight only for Colin Kennedy. He's the one who gave me the contacts, the photographs, and everything like this. This is much a labour of his love as of mine. So thank you very much, Colin. I've got to thank WR, Julie's, Open Tempo, Laura Brown, This Is Up, Frankie King, and Home Instead. Now, Home Instead, who I work for, are given €2 for every single book that's sold here tonight towards the Lions Club Christmas Hamper Field. So, fair dues to Nat Conner for doing that. The Love Zone. Does anybody remember the Love Zone with Chase? Seriously? Yeah. As sad as I was, I used to ring you up every single night looking for Chicago singles, Hard to Break. I had no idea. But it's fantastic to have so many people down here tonight. There's a lot of people here tonight who wouldn't have necessarily been in radio, but would have been in a band. And a lot of people here remember Simon in the Showboat at the time when the Waterford Glass made sure that they paid people on a Thursday because Simon were playing them in the Showboat. So there's a lot of people like that. We actually have an institution here tonight. A man has been around since about 1845, and his name is Dasher Bolger. He's just and listen, seriously, it's fantastic there's so many people here. What we do have as well is, aside from the Showboat and Trayers and Fat Browns, which an awful lot of people remember, there was a pub called the Norris Minor, which of course was above Norris's. And had a very alternative scene, had the likes of Louis Quinlan, the Pasta Factor, we had Paul Butler involved as well in Euro. So they are worth a mention towards everything here as well tonight. It means an awful lot. I thank you, Conor, for going on for the last 3 hours.
Forget Rick.
Yeah, and especially Rick Whelan as well, yeah. WLR started on the 23rd of June 1978. At the very first, there's been hundreds and hundreds of private radio stations through it from 78 onwards. But the only three that we will remember from a Munster point of view was ABC, WLR and Sureside. And an awful lot of people remember that. And it was at a time when you could, as Conor was saying, you could get away with what you wanted, with regards to that. And they've all left their own mark into everybody here. I said there's people here who remember the Love Zone, and even before that, it's an arse pan there, front runners. But what is fantastic to see tonight is the DJs that have been here. And again, I can't keep saying this, people who've not been in the same room for about 30 odd years. Now what we're going to do in a while is Noel Brown is here tonight, and it's going to be a lovely photograph, a commemorative photograph from all the DJs that are here tonight, out alongside of the trailer. You know, that's very important. Again, as I said, thank you very, very much for supporting the book. My wife goes through an awful lot of me locking myself away up in the room. Do you like playing this porn? Or should we, these things happen like so Sandra, thanks very much for going on. Yeah, you've been there as well. You're up to you tell your wife to John, easy. We don't watch your porn, that's fine, okay. And my daughter and Leanne and Callum, who I met for about 2 minutes in the kitchen in June, I think, so I don't see them talk. But listen, again, after I want Ray Sarsfield come down from Dublin tonight. Now, obviously, he's involved with ABC. So Ray's going to come and say a few words. After that, if you have a bit of Cuna flavour, Roddy Clare and Timmy Ryan are going to talk about a few of the people who were here from the 70s and from the 80s. And again, I said, we get the port over down. But again, thank you very much for turning out there. It means a lot. Thank you. Ray Sarsfield, come.
Okay, so don't forget, I forget a lot these days. First of all, Brian would like me to thank you for gathering here today so he can shake you down for a few quid. I have to write everything down these days. I even wrote that down. Listen, it's a great pleasure to talk to you before the row starts. Brian's crowning achievement this evening is not the publication of the book, but as has been said several times before, the coming together of the great and the good of broadcasting in this area under one roof. It's got the feel of a school reunion, though the common denominator is not the same school or similar age, rather a love of contemporary music and the desire to share it with the public at large. You are a cast of characters blessed with talent, passion and a love of the crack. I was at the height of my drinking career during my time at Shoreside on ABC, and it's safe to say that the majority of my colleagues at both stations had a similar thirst. It made for an interesting social life. There was the night we locked Clive Derrick in his car. He was naked at the time. There was the night Paul Durr dropped his trousers in the middle of Egan's. The time that Steve Silby kicked in the door of his flat, even though he had a key. The night that 9 of us drove home from New Ross in a Mini. The night we finished above WLR at the South End Pop Quiz again. Hey! And the night that Tony Morell told an interrogating guard that his name was Robin fucking Hood.
McDonald's, it's not that way.
All right, okay. So, lads, as we finish up tonight, at this part of it, just like I said, we'd just like to remember those who have passed on. And if anybody has any recordings, I think it's something that we should do. We should put together some kind of, I don't know, an archive of recordings. So I know that we'll be going around the room and checking with several people. So if anybody has any recordings, maybe we should just get together and archive them for once and for all. So thanks very much, lads.
Thank you very much, Conor. Hope you're having a good night, folks. First of all, congratulations to Brian for a great book. Presumably you all have a copy of it. There's €2 going to the Christmas appeal. So thanks a million. Is this distorted? Is it okay now? It's okay. I just want to mention one of the guys who just walked in there, Tom Milan, who was one of the early WR DJs. Tom is right in there. As a lot of people have mentioned, it's just wonderful to see so many people together in one room tonight. I haven't seen PH for so long, and it warms my heart to see Pat Harlan. I haven't seen Pat in well over 10 years. So good to see him, Pat. Alan Feasy. I bump into Shay Searson very occasionally, and it's great to see him tonight. It's just great. The gathering here is just so wonderful. I know all the lads from ABC probably haven't seen a lot of their mates as well, and we all bump into each other all the time. And it seems to be kind of a fraternity here in Waterford where, you know, we've all stuck together and we've all done well. And as Clive was saying, you know, WR came out of here, as Steve said, I can't remember, you know, WR, but ABC went over to South East Radio and, you know, flourished there. And everybody's done kind of well. And you know, I'm just looking at the names here. I know Shane mentioned people who passed away like Bob and Tony, Ray O'Brien, Eddie Cody. My God, what a legend. Every time I hear that song, we said it on the radio this morning, you know, there's a guy who works down the ship shop, swears his Elvis. It's Eddie, isn't it? The song was written for Eddie. Shorsha Omer Hinsha, Seamus Morrissey, he used to do a trad show with us. That's right. And he died and he was with us. You had Sheila O'Keefe, Billy Mull's sister. Remember Sheila? And she'd say anything on the air. You know, he's getting all empty, he still wants that sex with me. Cut it off and stick it up in the pan. She grand. And Sheila would say anything, and poor Sheila died. I have to mention John Ferguson as well, because John had a big part to play in my career, because do you remember John Craig, John Ferguson? And I worked with John in Cork, and he got me into the Pirates in Cork in 1977, which was a long time ago. Rick's Crackers Disco, lads, remember that? Crackers Disco?
A Carol youth from Dungarvan, West Waterford, and he taught the city slickers a whole lot about radio. The one and only Jimmy Ryan, ladies and gentlemen. celebrating 30 odd years in radio. He's still the king of the microphone, the man worth getting up for in the morning. Timmy is going to have a word with us now. And here he is, folks. Timmy, it's good to see you, boy. Fresher than ever, fresher than ever. The legendary Dr. Underdose. I'm not going to go on with a big speech or anything like that now because we've had enough of them this evening. It's great to see a lot of the heads that are here tonight. I know we're going to introduce somebody from the bands in a minute because I think it's been a lot radio up to now. We want to get a bit of the bands. A lot of the guys couldn't make it tonight because they're doing gigs, they're trying to make a living. But Liam Walsh is here tonight. There was a lot of confusion about his name over the years. John Fletch or Liam Walsh. Stephen Doherty's down the back there. They used to work with the Shoreside years ago. I think he's now in Southeast Radio. Kerry, the only girl here tonight. No one's mentioned really Kerry, who came in as a little schoolgirl into ABC Radio when I was there back in 85, I think. Was it 85, Kerry? 86? And did really well, went on to be a national broadcaster. Did you leave your point there? I won't take it, honestly, I really won't. But just to make it brief, we've had a fantastic time. I'm still involved in radio, thankfully, because I love it. But I got great training, the likes of Clive, Steve, some of the guys in WR were fantastic over the years. We had a ball. Can't do a lot of that stuff anymore, but God, I mean, people ask me today, some of the guys that I work with now say, what was it like? I say, I can't tell you, you had to have been there. So there's no point, you've got to read the book and get some of the stories. ABC, I had 2 years at ABC. Unbelievable. The crack was fantastic. And I can't remember where the likes of Clive, who was the boss at the time, but apart from being the boss, he was one of the guys. We used to go down to Egan's a lot. Very popular watering hole, as you remember, Steve. So we had such a ball. And I remember feeling very welcome at ABC when I went there. Shoreside was different, but it was fantastic. WR again, very different. But the training you got, just incredible. And I feel sorry for some of the guys today that have to do their courses, go to wherever they go to learn. But I know Clive is doing a bit of lecturing and teaching now, but he'll give them good stuff. I know you'll show them, Clive. I know you'll show them because you've got the ability to do that. But we can make the mistakes. We can do what we wanted. We can play what we wanted. But I got into the whole radio thing because I love music, not to make money. I took a drop.
Radio blah blah. Audio recording, part 2. Over 76% of the city and county now listen to their local station. WLR connected on a more human level. An appeal for clothes and toys in December 78, which started from a tiny caravan placed in the centre of town, were brought them into a £1 million plus annual charity drive for St Vincent de Paul. The Lions Club Christmas hamper heat was born. From an outside broadcast unit, or caravan to be precise, the station ran a few auctions to make money for the appeal. Their response was astonishing, with the auctions running to almost 15 days. The first appeal made around 7,000. It began the start of a relationship between WLR and the Lions Club, that's going almost 35 years later. The last year of the decade gave us a papal visit, Ireland's first female pilot, Jack Lynch standing down as Fianna Fáil leader, to be replaced by the one Charles J. Hoy, and a country still deep in recession. Sound familiar? 1979 would be the worst year for industrial disputes in the history of the Republic, costing the economy over 1,460,000 in lost working days that year. Having a job was a godsend. Going from strength to strength, Waterford local radio expanded their hours on air from 7:30 in the morning to 1:30 at night. To those young ones reading this book, was scoffed by the radio station not being 24 hours. Our national television station, RTE, came on just before midday, and then they went a Ron Levine shortly before midnight. Just over 12 hours later, about the time you'd be in bed. Programming becomes much more diverse, integrating local well-known personalities with community and youth groups. The arrival of a second pirate station in 1979 also adds some competition. Started by former WLR sales manager Mick Daly and operating out of Rathcullen in Ferrybank, Shoreside Radio came across the airwaves that February. Now Warwood had a choice of 2 pirate stations. We barely had 2 television stations, yet we had 2 pirates just miles apart. Still in its infancy, having made great strides, WLR was now bringing in a steady stream of revenue. And with the business acumen of Des Whelan, plus a recognised set of local DJs, the structure of the station got more settled. At the start, there was a need to be more expendable. Still using the back of a 5.0 from a vast amount of vinyl, a singles and album chart based on sales and popularity was launched. This would prove a major success. At this point, the only countdown that mattered was every Thursday night on BBC One. Top of the Pops had huge viewing numbers, attracting over 15 million viewers by the late 70s, eventually spanning 42 years. By introducing this chart where locals could dictate what went to number 1, simply by buying the record LP, it became more personalised. Now you would know exactly what the best-selling single or album was in the town. I know this because I personally helped the Beats Mirror in the bathroom get to number 3 by buying 6 copies of the record when it first came out. The station celebrated its first anniversary with a live broadcast from the Arch Hotel, where new DJ Alan Feasey did a marathon 10-hour show to raise money for St Vincent de Paul. Far from being a daunting task, the young man loved it. As the station had so many disc jockeys playing some of the same music, there would be a need for individuality, to have their own style. One did with Martin Hart. Martin joined the ranks of Waterford Local Radio in 1979, becoming a very popular DJ within his own right. Neil Bullock had stepped out from behind the counter at 5.0 to present a late-night rock show, which played a host of new and exciting bands, but also helping the sales of records in the shop. Tony Weldon, a man who would become synonymous with the station and housewives and feathers of the bedroom kind, took over a tea time special. That had become very popular with an older audience. His laid-back style, coupled with music from yesteryear, made him a housewife's favourite. Already been known for his time in the Frankie King Band and as a solo artist, releasing Let Us Be Sweethearts. Weldon proved very popular whatever the slot. He moved to Sunday mornings, whilst he were all in the feathers, perhaps his definitive show. Jeff Harris, who temporarily left the station to join RT Radio 2, had returned as well. Having worked with the radio in Cork with CBC, Cork Broadcasting Company, the word from a man who had been doing discos locally when he was only 14, was recommended to RT through Mark Cagney when RT2 was short a DJ during Eurovision week. The 20-year-old worked in the Big Smoke alongside the likes of Marty Whelan, Roland Collins, Dave Fanning and Jerry Ryan before his hurries in Waterford. Kieran O'Neill would join the radio revolution soon after, though at the time it may have been the last thing on his mind. Soon after, Waterford Local Radio finally found a home in the city centre. The move from Kilotran was always on the cards, with the station becoming ever more expensive, and there was need for easy access and height in order to use their VHF transmitter. The station set up shop in Wellington Street. The VHF transmitter is crucial, and every shop, pub and factory are tuned into the station with greater clarity. Housewives around the city, to a guy in his local, or the entire Waterford Crystal plant, the station was everywhere. WLR would enter the 1980 St Patrick's Day Parade, fittingly as pirates, but things didn't go exactly to plan. The station collected over 1,000 worth of Easter eggs for needy children in Waterford, along with £200 that's raised by auctioning a single Easter egg. WLR introduced a job finding service which proved very popular. With Ireland almost a third world country and people paying 60% tax, that's right, you young ones, 60 pence in the pound. This lot proves a great success. Soon after, the local Gardaí utilised the station as WLR appealed for the public help in solving local crimes. By this stage, the number 72248 is dialed more times than the Gardaí. On the last Sunday in April 1980, a goal by defender Brian Gardner meant Waterford FC captured the FA Cup for the second time in their history. 20,000 lined the quay for the return home. To spread the love, the RG Hotel was used as a venue for WLR for an official victory dance for the team. On the evening the Blues returned home, the station was snowed on with requests to play the infamous interviews that Matt Keane recorded in the dressing room at Pennymouth. We went into the showers to do the interviews, which were a little crazy, and I couldn't hear a thing. I didn't know what we were thinking. I remember trying to interview Sid Wallace, but all I could hear were the showers, bad language, shouting and roaring when I tried to get a sensible interview. Seemed like a good idea at the time. One of the station's most recognised names joined the forward in late 1980 when Billy McCarthy took to the airwaves. He was soon emerged as the housewife's favourite, the first as far as Billy McCarthy and his Good News programme, and later, when the station went legal, to his mid-morning Day AM slot, which he hosts to the present day. Dermot Graham started a new magazine programme, which proved one of the most popular on the station's road. Straight to the point and often confrontational, the listening figures went through the roof. Just what the doctor ordered. O'Neill came over from Shoreside to present the breakfast show at WLR, working on his own programme and hand in hand with Clodagh Walsh in a club community roundup show that proved hugely popular. Outside the microphone, Rohan became heavily involved in booking bands and running concerts in the city for the likes of Horslip's Planet and Paul Brady, before managing local band Nero. Tommy O'Keefe joined suit after from Shoreside, taking up the early morning slot where the newsroom now boasted three ladies, Helen O'Brien, and Carolyn Walsh. More familiar names like Liam Walsh and Colin Kennedy, Timmy Ryan and John O'Shea rise soon after. Radio was the only place to be. End of Radio Blaa audio commentaries, part 2, by Beta Boy, James.